Thank you all. We'll begin the afternoon session with a continuation of presentations by the staff, and I call upon the Director General to do the next introduction, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Now the next one is Joe King, who will speak about Heritage Impact Assessment, Evaluating Development at Heritage Sites. Please, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director General. I have the unenviable task of speaking first after lunch because I'm afraid, well, some people are not back from lunch yet, but also I think people have hopefully had very good lunches and are maybe digesting their food. But I'll try to keep this as straight and to the point as I possibly can. The topic of this presentation is an activity that we have been doing at ICCROM, a course on heritage impact assessment. And the purpose of this presentation will be to talk about the course, but also to a bit put it in context. Why HIA? Why do we need to be thinking about heritage impact assessment? Well, certainly more and more development projects around the world are creating potential threats to heritage sites. And that's true for World Heritage Sites, and it's true for heritage in general. Now, why is that true? Well, I think part of the reason is because just in general, we're getting a lot more large development projects. We have potentials to remake neighborhoods within cities. We have potential to develop large dam projects or other large infrastructure projects. So we seem to be developing in the last 10 or 15 years a much larger number, a much larger amount of development proposals. I think the second reason also, however, is that we have an expanding definition of the heritage. Where we used to focus mostly on monuments and archaeological sites and museum objects, let's say, now, because we are expanding our definition, because we are talking about historic towns, because we're talking about cultural landscapes, because we're talking about historic urban landscapes and living heritage, there is more heritage out there that we are trying to protect. And obviously, when there's more heritage out there that we are trying to protect, the developments, the potential developments that are out there are going to have an effect on that heritage. So that is, in general, the reason that we need to be looking more at heritage impact assessment. Now, we did a quick reading of the State of Conservation reports that are read by the World Heritage Committee every year, and this particular graph comes from a few years ago, but it shows you the kinds of problems that World Heritage sites are experiencing. And as you can see, the largest amount by far are in fact new developments and infrastructure projects. And so again, that is the need for doing good heritage impact assessment is because, in fact, there are these large numbers of development and infrastructure projects. The second is management and legal issues, and then followed by other issues. But again, the major part are coming from development projects. Now, I'm just showing you a couple of pictures, and I don't mean to single out any particular state party, because the fact of the matter is that there are developments that are happening in at everyone's sites all over the world. But here's an example from Mishketa in Georgia, where the two churches that you see in the picture are World Heritage Sites. And actually, the picture is taken from a third World Heritage Site, which is on a hilltop. And as you can see, there were some new developments that were done in a very sensitive area, both an environmentally sensitive and culturally heritage sensitive area. The fact of the matter is, if we had had a good and robust environmental assessment, or heritage impact assessment process at that time, it might have been easier for the state party to make decisions as to whether this is appropriate development, whether the development could be changed or mitigated in one way or another. But this is true for everyone. Here's the skyline of London. It's the Tower of London in the foreground. The question becomes, what should the skyline of London look like? What are the sensitive view areas for the Tower of London, and how can we better plan for development to make sure that new developments don't have overly negative impacts on our heritage sites. Again, there are no value judgments here. It's just to say that we need to understand this. We need to understand what the values are, and we need to understand how they will be affected so that we can take better decisions ultimately. Because that's really what we want to do, is we want to be able to take better decisions about our development projects. So, what is the context for this particular course? I would start in terms of context with the World Heritage Capacity Building Program, which is a program that was developed in cooperation with, between ICCROM and IUCN, with the cooperation of ICOMOS and the World Heritage Center, and with support from the government of Switzerland. And that program was developed, and there are a number of things within that program, different kinds of activities that we should be working on. So things like courses on linking cultural and natural heritage, development and translation of key resource materials, improving networking and capacity for, improving networking for capacity building actors in the World Heritage field. But one of the things that it calls for also are short workshops on key conservation issues facing World Heritage properties. And as I've already mentioned, this issue of heritage impact assessment is one that is actually a key issue for World Heritage. The World Heritage Committee is asking state parties for more and more heritage impact assessments. And so what we're trying to do is give the states parties the tool to be able to actually meet those requests from the World Heritage Committee. The second context for this particular course is a memorandum of understanding that ICCROM has with the State Administration of Cultural Heritage from China, which organizes a number of activities here at ICCROM, both on the collection side and on the site side. So we have a framework MOU with them, and within that framework MOU, we have a long-standing partnership with the World Heritage Institute for Training in Asia and the Pacific region. WITTRAP is the short name for that, and that is a UNESCO Category 2 center. And ICCROM has been working with WITTRAP for, gosh, I don't know, I guess maybe 6 or 8 years, I would say, doing courses. And the last few have been on this topic of heritage impact assessment. The funding for these courses comes from WITTRAP. They bear all the costs of the course. So, what is the information on the course? This last course took place in October of last year, over a 2-week period, more or less, and it took place in China, in the city of Duzhangyan. And as I mentioned, this is the second of these courses with WITTRAP that we've done specifically on the topic of heritage impact assessment. It was an international course, not just a regional course. It wasn't only for Asia, but we had participants in addition to Asia from Zambia, from Lithuania, and from Mexico. So different regions of the world were represented. So what did we do in the course? Well, here are some of the key themes that we talked about. You see them on the screen. The first and most important was really understanding the values which form the basis of the heritage impact assessment process. That is, we need to understand what the core values are, what the OUV is for the World Heritage Sites, in order to determine what the impacts are. So we always have to start with understanding the values. The course then went through a global overview of heritage impact assessment and its relation to the larger concepts of environmental impact assessment and strategic environmental assessments. We talked with the participants about the vocabulary, about legal aspects for HIA, and procedural issues. We also taught about the ICCROM guidance that exists currently within the World Heritage Framework for carrying out heritage impact assessments. And then we talked about approaches and methodologies and how to mitigate and mitigation measures. The picture that you see in this particular slide is a group of community members from the city in China, which were related to a site project that we did there. So we invited the community there and actually had discussion with them in relation to the site project. The site project was a group work. And we presented a square, an open square to the participants, and said that there was a desire for a development of hotels, shops, and underground parking in this particular historic area. And then we asked the participants to do an overview, to meet with representatives of the community, and that's the picture that you saw before, and to determine what the impacts were and potential mitigation. And in fact, here you'll see the results. So the participants looked at this particular situation and they tried to determine what are the threats to the various attributes of the property, and to look at those threats not only in terms of the eventual project, but actually also what are the threats in the planning phase of the project, in the implementation phase of the project, and then the lasting results once the project is built. So it's a multidimensional analysis of the threats or the potential impacts. In addition, the participants then looked at the severity of those impacts. Are they neutral? Are they minimal? Are they moderate? Are they large? Or are they very large? Because that's also obviously a very important part of carrying out these impact assessments, trying to understand, yes, there's a threat, but how serious is that threat? And then finally, as I said, once the threats are determined, the issue is to determine what are mitigation strategies. How can we minimize, if the project is going to go ahead, how can we minimize the impacts and how can we minimize the threats to the existing heritage? And then finally, the participants came out with a series of recommendations and conclusions, which were then passed on to the developers, essentially. I mean, it was an exercise. It wasn't real, but if it had been real, they passed on a series of recommendations and conclusions to the people doing the project. So where do we go from here? That's how that in general is the course and the way it was implemented. But of course, we also have to look at this course within a wider context of what's going on heritage impact assessment in the world right now. We've done 2 of these courses right now. In addition to that, we are working with WITTRAP to try to create a manual for HIA based on the course materials that we've already produced. So that's in discussion right now with WITTRAP. But there are also other initiatives going on. ICCROM is in the process of reviewing its own guidance on HIA for World Heritage properties. There is a group of European universities from Germany, Austria, and the Netherlands who are also currently working on a project to develop guidance and case studies for heritage impact assessment. And then the final point that I would want to make here is that no matter what we do in relation to this heritage impact assessment, it's also very important for us to make sure that we link it back into the larger environmental impact assessment process. Because environmental impact assessments actually have sort of legal frameworks already in place. Countries have legislation on their books for environmental impact assessment. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we integrate this heritage impact assessment into these larger processes of environmental impact assessment. Finally, what about capacity building? Because of course that's one of the things that ICCROM is strongest at. We are intending to do a 3rd course in 2016 with WITTRAP, and the place has not been determined yet, but I believe it will be in China somewhere. But the fact of the matter is this is needed in most of the regions of the world. So I think we all have a desire to try to actually ramp up the activities that we're doing in capacity building and try to carry these out in other regions of the world. In order to do that, of course, we need host countries, and we also need the resources to be able to do that, because ICCROM by itself does not have additional resources to carry out more courses. But certainly, if we can get the resources, and if we can get some countries or some regions, some groups of countries and regions that are interested in doing this, this is something that we could try to ramp this activity up and distribute it more around the world, because this is an issue, as I said, that affects every country, every region of the world. Thank you, Madam Chairman, and that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Joe. I think that now, before that Aparna is speaking, there is a video about our, I think, last activity.
Attention. Okay. Good afternoon. I hope you all had a nice lunch. It's an honor to report on the International Conference and Workshop on Unlocking Sound and Image Heritage held in September 2015 at Brussels and organized as part of ICCROM's SOIMA, Sound and Image Collections Conservation Program. I would like to begin with a short recording. was an unaltered sound recording made at the riverbank forest habitat at Borneo. The artist, David Monaki, has been making such recordings for past 15 years, and he calls them fragments of extinction. Why? Because the life's chorus, the joyful sounds that you have just heard, are in the danger of being silenced, as the forests that are the primary habitats are disappearing due to uncontrolled development and climate change. In fact, IUCN, and I hope our partners from IUCN here, the International Nature Conservation Agency says that today the rate of extinction is 1,000 to 10,000 times higher. Therefore, these sound recordings are even more precious today because they hold the DNA of life and are helping scientists to study and protect biodiversity in the world. Indeed, recorded sounds and images are an integral part of our daily lives. From current affairs, that's the picture of Malala getting her Nobel Prize, to providing evidence of terrible war crimes, to the records of our intangible heritage and personal memories. Yet, these records are very, very fragile. Furthermore, contrary to popular perception, the most significant sound and image collections are held by cultural and research institutions. For example, according to a study carried out by Northeast Document Center, Conservation Center, there are 537 million sound recordings in the United States, and 57% of these are rare, and majority of these are held by museums, archives, and libraries. Furthermore, they are also undigitized. Experts now believe that we have only 10 years, a window of 10 years, to digitize them, after which time either the physical state of the carriers or the lack of playback equipment would make digitization unaffordable. Looking at this global challenge, in 2006, ICCROM launched SOIMA, Sound and Image Collections Conservation Program. It is a one-of-its-kind capacity-building program, and the aims of SOIMA were also very unique. The objective was to train professionals in charge of mixed sound and cultural image collections residing in cultural institutions that do not necessarily have the means, the knowledge, or the infrastructure to preserve this kind of heritage. The other main objective was to break barriers, because when we started this program, the film person was not talking to the video person was not talking to the audio person, and the photograph person was also working in a silo. And there was also the IT people were also working in self-contained sectors. So after a survey, we felt that this needs to change. The knowledge needs to come together because collections are in a messy situation and they are in mixed state. We have carried out 5 courses, and over the period of 9 years, every alternate, in a biennial program, we had every other year a course. And we have 108 participants from 53 countries. And this network, here I would like to mention that these SOIMA courses are not simple courses because every year the technology was changing, so the courses had to be revamped. But our network responded ably. After doing one course, we had a new generation of trainers, and now happily we have a situation where the SOIMA network is leading research and development and feeding into the existing training. When we had started the program, digitization was but one strategy for preservation. But today's cultural record is acquired, born digital, and it is from multiple devices. And there is a huge crisis for storage because there is a lot of content, but there is shrinking storage and not enough resources to have digital storages or safe digital repositories. To look into, and in this environment, cross-sector knowledge exchange and partnerships are even more crucial for crossing the barriers of user agreements, software licenses, and copyright issues. To look into these problems, SOIMA 2015 was conceived, and the Royal Institute for Cultural Heritage, ICCROM, joined us. One of the SOIMA former participants is the head of the audiovisual unit at ICCROM. She coordinated this idea of an international workshop and a conference in Brussels. The aims were to reunite the SOIMA community, to review the progress, and also to see what has changed since we started and what is the future direction. The conference was preceded by an advanced workshop on sustaining sound and image collections. When I say advanced, we brought our former participants who are now in charge, who are in senior management positions, and we brought some new participants together to look at systemic issues of digitization backlogs, digital preservation, user-driven access, and we tested, kind of experimented, the application of human-centered design to collection management. I do not have time to explain what is human-centered design, but later on, in a coffee break, maybe if you are interested, I can explain. We had good results from this, and it's a direction that we can take over. And the conference itself, well, it brought 150 participants from 95 institutions and 41 countries. The participants were creators, collectors, curators, educators, business leaders, and technology specialists. ICCROM helped us, together with the Netherlands Institute of Sound and Vision, to put together an impressive partnership of 19 partners and sponsors. And some of them were like, the open source platforms like Wikimedia. And some of them were just startups. So it was a very broad range of partnerships. The program highlights consisted of an eco-acoustic concert. You just heard the sound recording that I played earlier. And performances, a debate on open access, and several keynotes. 37 papers were presented. Some of it was, the research was unveiled for the first time. The ATHAR team, ICCROM-ATHAR team, helped in the planning and implementation of this conference and workshop because ICCROM-ATHAR would like to organize a SOIMA training in Arabic in 2017 because the region has a specific need. The first need is that the region is in crisis and many of the audiovisual archives are endangered. In fact, we had a presentation from Syria where an archive was evacuated with the help of Prince Claus Fund and is now being digitized in Turkey. The other need is that the region has very rich cultural history, oral history, and intangible history, and this sound and image records have been used to record this intangible heritage in the region. So it would be very useful to bring this kind of training in Arab region. The feedback that we received from the conference was really heartening. It's like people said it was truly international, it had an holistic approach, topics were interlinked, and there were grassroots voices. A picture is worth 1,000 words, it's often said, and has the power to shape as well as transform our ideas. To begin with, some of the biggest inventions of our times, such as the aeroplane, which many of you took, I assume you took a plane ride to get to this meeting, were captured in a two-dimensional drawing. Therefore, in order to engage and inspire our conference participants to implement positive change in their respective countries, we organized a visual brainstorm to outline a 10-year vision of sound and image heritage field. The conference attendees were then asked to identify actions that would help to transform this vision into reality. Simply put, the 10-year vision envisages a smart, open, and connected heritage. Smart, because collecting institutions 10 years from now will have to use smart technologies and social media platforms to identify, document, and prioritize sound and image content. Open, because more and more people will demand access to sounds and images for creative use, and this would have implications for user agreements and copyright legislations. Connected, because there has been a huge shift in our thinking, and it has been evident from the presentations of my colleagues. Increasingly, governments and people are asking how heritage connects with sustainable development agenda. That ICCROM has a role in promoting preservation and use of sound and image heritage rang out loud and clear during the entire event. The conference attendees recommended that ICCROM should continue to expand its base of partners and hold SOIMA training at multiple levels, at a higher management level, which could be think tank workshops or meetings, and also at the level of collection managers, and in different languages. We already had one, thanks to the contribution of Mexico, we've had one edition of SOIMA in Spanish in 2014 as part of the LATAM program, and the Arabic edition is being planned. The other major recommendations included using partner and alumni networks to evaluate emerging solutions such as 3D printing, which was mentioned earlier in the Japanese in the NARA course. 3D printing can actually overcome hardware obsolescence, but right now the technology is very expensive, and still it is it's being tested. The other is to build a culture of innovation by offering trainings or workshops on creative use and user-driven access to sound and image heritage. And finally, influence policy on copyright to promote open access. Undoubtedly, sound and image heritage could make a significant contribution to holistic social growth. However, to unlock its full potential, we need partnerships. And to put it in the words of the final keynote speaker of the conference, Daudi Were, who's the CEO of Ushahidi Crisis Mapping and Data Visualizing app, if seeds were data in form of audiovisual records, then land in which they would take root would be platforms. So that's what the world is heading for, platforms. We will be acquiring our content from platforms and downloading our content from platforms. And farmers would be partners in form of cultural institutions, business organizations, IT industry. And the time to plant these seeds is now, before we lose today's cultural record. ICCROM's contribution with €30,000 per year and 40% staff time, has managed to bring this new program, SOIMA, together, and we have broken new ground and created a niche, which was acknowledged in this conference by big organizations like Fiat IFTA, which is the International Federation for Television Archives. Imagine what we could do with 300,000 and support of our member states. We would be able to develop concrete strategies for ensuring that significant records of humanity have a future, and we could do this work within the next 2 years. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Aparna. It's now the moment of Zaki Aslan introducing the ICCROM-ATHAR program. Thank you.
Thank you, Director General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great honor to address you all, distinguished delegates from around the globe, reporting again on the progress made for ICCROM-ATHAR's work on the conservation and protection of cultural heritage in the Arab region. Please allow me to present a few images to illustrate to you the context we work in. This image from the Institut d'Egypte that was established in 1798 by Napoleon Bonaparte with the aim of promoting scientific advancement in Egypt, disseminating science and knowledge, and researching and documenting its historical events. In December 2011, the building was caught on fire during protests in Cairo. Fires broke out not only the ceiling of the building, but also manuscripts of highest value. While the building and 70% of the Institute's collection were on fire, including the description of Egypt encyclopedia, the building was restored and much was replaced by digital copies, with a copy gifted by the Emirati Emir, Sheikh Dr. Sultan Al-Qasimi, our patron, member of the Supreme Council of the UAE and ruler of Sharjah. This image is from Palmyra, heritage of humanity blown, killing of the site custodian Khalid al-Assad, who led a site visit with his son Walid for the participants of the first ICCROM-ATHAR workshop on heritage site management in Syria. He, until the very end, defended Palmyra's treasures at the cost of his life. Sana'a, Yemen, houses in the historic city destroyed, people left with no shelter. GovC, the agency responsible for historic cities, asked to follow conservation standards where communities were desperate. We were called to act with the Yemeni colleagues who are delegates present with us today and having a meeting tomorrow to discuss a strategy together with UNESCO Doha in coordination with the World Heritage Center. This image is from Iraq, where we were involved with UNESCO since 2007, with more recent intentional destruction you've all watched on the TV screens, perpetuating the sad and controversial theory of the clash of civilizations. This image is from Libya, and you see also destruction of these Sufi shrines, again by the same source. We work in an area of the world where coexistence and solidarity were commonplace of the monolithic religions, sharing cultural human values of a civilized world for many centuries. As all speakers stressed at the inauguration yesterday with regards to our mission, embedded in the notion and spirit of international cooperation, the establishment of a regional field office for this troubled area of the world cannot be more timely. Thanks to the latest two General Assemblies for their decisions to establish a regional field office of ICCROM, and thanks to the gracious support we have received for this purpose from the United Arab Emirates, and particularly from His Highness Sheikh Dr. Sultan Al-Qasimi, that we have been able to achieve the main purpose of the 10-year ATHAR program that you see here on the screen since its inception in 2004. Nevertheless, as you have seen, the work ahead of us since then imposed greater demands on efforts to be exerted in cooperation with partners and the international community. Achieving this goal in the past 10 years was a major but incremental undertaking, a program that started for the Levant area with the support of the Italian government. In its pilot phase, was expanded in the second phase to serve all the Arab member states, thanks to the support of the Arab League and to the government of Sharjah and the UAE after the signature of the first MOU with His Highness Sheikh Dr. Sultan Al-Qasimi. The transfer phase witnessed substantial amount of work to root the program and its results in the region. Following a feasibility study, the signing of an agreement of implementation to build the premises of the new center, and decision made at the 27th General Assembly, complementing the interest expressed by the UAE at the 17th Conference of Ministers of Culture that was held in Doha in 2011. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, in the past biennium, we made effort to implement decisions taken at the latest General Assembly. The center's building, shared with the Sharjah Heritage Institute, with training, library, and lab facilities and office spaces, was completed. It was inaugurated on 14 November 2012 with accompanying exhibition highlighting the richness of cultural heritage of the Arab member states, thanks for their valuable contributions of information and objects that we take care of at the center. So this is the image of the newly established center. And we were working to have headquarters agreements signed with the federal government and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This has been achieved 1 month ago, granting the legal status of the center as an international organization in the UAE, thus facilitating its functioning and management as a field office with continuous contact and in line with administrative procedures in place at ICCROM. In continuation of ATHAR program's scope and philosophy, our work has addressed areas of ICCROM's work as reflected from its statute, as well as following ICCROM's strategic directions by implementing activities that included capacity building, outreach, dissemination of information and research, as well as cooperation in the field of field projects and contribution to regional and national policies. In the past biennium, along with the ongoing institutional consolidation work, we were busy implementing a wide range of activities that I'd like to invite you to see in the panels we have, on the panels we have outside this room, and our latest newsletter. Due to the limitation of time, I'd like to introduce them to you under the following categories. Under capacity building, 3 main course activities were implemented, ranging from taking oral history for preservation to risk management for museum collections. This included all preparation work for accreditation of a graduate master degree that will start in late 2016 with the University of Sharjah. An agreement was also signed recently with the University of Sharjah, thus following up the latest General Assembly decisions in this regard. We have also conducted with UNESCO 4 regional national, it should remain here. We have also conducted with UNESCO 4 regional and national two-week courses in the area of safeguarding cultural heritage in time of conflict in Lebanon, Tunisia, and Egypt for the benefit of affected countries, including Syria, Libya, and Yemen. In the area of knowledge dissemination, we had 7 publications with partners, UNESCO and Alexo, who supported the translation, and we also produced and reprinted some of these information sources and guidelines. Also, in the area of policies, we had 4 conference exhibitions and symposia events aimed at developing policies and think tank workshops for the work of ICCROM, ranging from use of lasers conferences to protection of cultural heritage in times of crisis, which were taken forward by the ministers of culture in their latest meeting in Riyadh. So these are images of the exhibition and outreach work that we had. We had also a school competition to sensitize the students' perception about their cultural heritage. Nevertheless, we still have to work on strategies that will consolidate and sustain the efforts achieved in most effective manner and continuing to address emerging needs such as funding. In addition to funding, we are working closely with our Chief Administration Officer on many areas. But before getting into this, I'd like to, I'm sure you see on the screen, we were able to increase the funding from the last biennium to the next biennium by an increase of 37%. And we have had also, in addition to the government of Sharjah in the UAE, we had contributions from UNESCO, Alexo, the ARC World Heritage Center in Bahrain, and we also were working on national projects in the United Arab Emirates and Yemen, which were unfortunately put on hold, and some support from the US State Department. So in 2016, 2017, we'll address capacity building growing needs with such priorities. So we will be working on diversifying the funding sources. We will continue working on consolidating the setup of the regional office in consultation with similar field offices that exist by international organizations in the UAE. And we will be working on positioning the center and increasing its visibility, as well as working on more effective relations with the state parties concerned. So these are images from the capacity building workshop we had in Lebanon. And as I mentioned, next year we will be starting this MA higher diploma degree with the University of Sharjah, who have amazing and really incredible lab facilities that we will be using for education purposes. And we will be working on, under capacity building, on areas of disaster risk management and recovery with our colleagues at ICCROM. We will be addressing the issue of museum exhibitions and display due to the increasing number of museums such as the Louvre, the Guggenheim, you heard of, I'm sure, in Abu Dhabi. But also we will be working on a program for underwater cultural heritage in cooperation with the government of Spain. And we will continue working on management of urban historic area or urban historic landscapes using GIS as a management tool to manage these historic places. And as my colleague Aparna Tandon mentioned, in 2017 we will introduce a first course on, of SOIMA for the region due to the urgency of such action, especially for countries such as Egypt, but also other countries in the region. So in the coming biennium, we would like to work more for ICCROM-ATHAR to be a hub of information and knowledge for the region. So we'll be working on the database and on the library, digital library, with our colleagues, of course, in the headquarters. We will be working on, we will be having 2 major workshops feeding the policies and contributing to advancement of policies in the region. And we will continue our work in the area of publications and translation with professional guidance. And we are focusing, of course, to provide information as much as possible in Arabic. So Finally, it is to be mentioned it was with the support of several national and regional partners, as well as colleagues and professionals working with us in the past 10 years, that we reached objectives of an ICCROM program for a region in need of great attention and serious work. Needless to say, this should be based on cooperation and effective dialogue to safeguard our shared human values and cultural heritage for our humanity at all levels. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. The section on the report of the implementation of the program 2014-15 has now ended, and the Director General and his staff are now available to answer any questions in regard to the presentations that have been made both this morning and this afternoon. So I open the floor to any interventions or questions at this time. Sorry. Thank you. Republic of Korea first.
Then there is
this opportunity to congratulate the Director General Stefano Di Caro and ICCROM staffs for the excellent works undertaken. ICCROM, it has been fulfilling wonderful programs for conserving culture and promoting future by wonderful people, and we appreciate your effort deeply with our heart and anticipated to hear these good records continuously. To propagate the spirit of ICCROM, Korean government set out a trust fund for regional program with ICCROM, which led to launching of the Core Asia program and think tank meeting to build capacity in heritage conservation in Asia and share ideas and solutions of expert to deal with the important issues of the region. Ms. Katrina and Mr. Gamini has been making a tremendous dedication to the programs, thanks all of their commitment in terms of time and thinking. So much inspired by Core Asia program, the National Research Institute of Cultural Heritage under the Cultural Heritage Administration of Korea has been running ACPCS program for more than 10 years. In the educational and cooperation point of view, we as well were influenced and encouraged. So we look forward to link the programs by the means of flourishing the future of our culture. On the behalf of Korea, I'd like to thank ICCROM for giving the chance to commit for not only preserving the value of our heritage of the region, but also enhancing it for the future generation of the world. Korea would not hesitate to actively participate in this role, and now I'm heartily urging our delegates and representatives here in this General Assembly to join. Thank you.
Thank you. The Netherlands.
Thank you very much. I would like to react on the latest contribution about the ATHAR program, and we would like to congratulate on the wonderful results of the program. I have a question, though, on the status of the ATHAR program within ICCROM. I don't know if I understand rightly that ATHAR now is somehow integrated into the ICCROM organization, and what is exactly the
Okay. You have to think at ATHAR as a program, as a set of activities under a certain philosophy. You have to think to the center developing the program ATHAR as an office of ICCROM. It's a unit of ICCROM. It's a unit which is some kilometers away, but which is fully integrated in our administrative, strategic thinking, organizational, and programming system. There is no separate council for ATHAR Center. Your council is this assembly, which is responsible for strategic directions. There is a scientific committee which includes council members of ICCROM for addressing more flexibly and under the strategic directions of this assembly, the needs in teaching, in formulating evaluation, but everything is under this assembly.
Thank you. Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais d'abord remercier le directeur général pour toutes ces réalisations. Et je voudrais réitérer notre satisfaction des résultats donc engrangés dans les différents programmes de conservation et de restauration donc menés par les différentes équipes de l'ICCROM, ce qui me donne l'occasion de les féliciter et de les encourager à persévérer dans ce sens, donc au nom de la délégation algérienne. Je n'ai pas d'appréciation particulière en termes, non pas en termes de résultats, mais en termes d'impact sur certains de ces programmes qui participent évidemment tous au développement de la connaissance scientifique et technique sur la conservation et la restauration. Je voudrais insister ou parler surtout sur deux régions où je dispose un peu plus d'éléments et d'informations, notamment donc en ce qui concerne les impacts des programmes de l'ICCROM. Je voudrais parler de la région arabe et de l'Afrique. Pour la région arabe, j'insisterai un petit peu sur le programme d'ATHAR. Donc, j'avais déjà donné mon point de vue et notre satisfaction sur ce programme. Je voudrais donc nous féliciter en tant qu'ICCROM pour la réussite d'une action qui nous a permis de suivre une action bien pensée et bien menée, qui nous a permis de voir la transformation d'un grand programme de l'ICCROM en une entité régionale dédiée aux pays arabes. Donc c'est le centre ICCROM de Sharjah qui est établi aux Émirats arabes unis. Il s'agit en fait là en termes d'impact, d'un véritable processus d'appropriation des valeurs de l'ICCROM par la région arabe et qui mérite d'être consolidé et renforcé, notamment dans ces articulations juridiques. Donc il y a l'intervention de la déléguée qui vient d'en parler un petit peu. Il s'agit aussi d'une opportunité pour l'ICCROM même d'investir dans une région arabe, donc le Proche-Orient, le Moyen-Orient et le Maghreb, où il est, je pense, utile, nécessaire et même indispensable, donc au point de vue de la cohérence des actions, d'établir un véritable diagnostic du niveau d'appropriation des questions liées au patrimoine culturel par les différents pays arabes. Donc faire l'inventaire de l'existant, donc faire l'inventaire des capacités institutionnelles, juridiques, des ressources d'expertise en matière d'expertise. Donc essayer d'établir une cartographie de toutes ces capacités ainsi que des besoins en termes de priorité. Et en un mot, à la base des programmes et des projets que nous déclinons, il faudrait dégager, au-delà des programmes, donc il faudrait dégager la stratégie régionale donc de la région arabe en matière de conservation et de restauration. Une stratégie qui doit donc être en accord avec nos politiques gouvernementales, qui sont incarnées par nos instances politiques nationales et régionales. C'est en fait là la plus grande priorité dans la réflexion, dans une réflexion cohérente. C'est en fait ça doit être le premier cahier des charges donc à établir avec ce nouveau centre de Sharjah, donc pour lui assurer et garantir la durabilité dans ces nobles actions. Actuellement, nous vivons, en termes de priorité stratégique, nous vivons une situation dramatique, celle liée à ce qui a été appelé le printemps arabe, en fait, qui n'a conservé de son printemps que les bourgeons de la haine et du désordre. C'est une situation exceptionnelle qui doit être perçue donc, en priorité dans une stratégie d'intervention d'urgence, donc en Syrie, au Yémen et en Libye notamment, et surtout de mobilisation et des solidarités donc, et des compétences en construisant en fait, les ponts de solidarité nécessaires pour sauvegarder donc, en fait, un patrimoine arabe en péril. En fait, il faut l'exprimer ainsi. Ceci pour la région arabe. Je ne vais pas tarder. Pour l'Afrique, je dirais un mot, étant moi-même membre du conseil d'administration du Fonds africain pour le patrimoine mondial, donc cette problématique est aussi partagée par rapport aussi du patrimoine mondial. Aujourd'hui, nous voyons donc, surtout dans la région ouest africaine, surtout centre et ouest africaine, avec les difficultés et la défection du Chéda, donc qui couvrait en fait une partie de ces régions, pas en termes de réalisation, mais en termes de présence, et en termes d'appropriation du patrimoine et de ce que fait l'ICCROM. Donc, la situation du patrimoine culturel dans ces régions, elle suscite moins d'attention et elle suscite moins d'intérêt, donc faute de financement, faute de porteurs de projets, faute d'initiatives donc en matière de patrimoine. Et je voudrais profiter donc de cette auguste assemblée donc pour interpeller l'ICCROM, en fait, pour ouvrir un champ de réflexion, pas pour un champ de réflexion sur cette problématique et dégager en fait des solutions de programme, travailler avec peut-être le Fonds africain du patrimoine pour essayer de rendre plus visible cette région. Je vais terminer enfin en partageant un point de vue qui a été développé ce matin par l'honorable délégué du Haïti qui consiste donc à réfléchir sur cette idée de satellisation de l'ICCROM donc pour des entités régionales puisque l'expérience de l'EPA et maintenant de Sharjah a donné ses fruits. Donc j'invite donc à réfléchir davantage sur cette question et je vous remercie. Merci.
Thank you. Morocco.
De mon pays, le Maroc, je tiens à intervenir pour exprimer ma gratitude à l'ICCROM et ses partenaires. La direction du patrimoine culturel marocain en tire un grand bénéfice en termes de renforcement des capacités. Je remercie par la même occasion le gouvernement italien qui a mis récemment en œuvre, via son ambassade à Rabat, la conversion d'une dette marocaine en projet de conservation et de restauration de sites archéologiques inscrits sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, tel le site de Volubilis et la ville de Rabat. Il s'agit ici d'un outil de financement, aussi il s'agit d'un modèle de partenariat nord-sud que nous suivrons de près et que nous appliquerons dans le futur si ces résultats paraîtront positifs. À la fin, j'appelle tous les États membres.
Excuse me, could I just, I'm afraid the translation is not working at all, and people are raising their hands, so could I just ask, we have to fix the problem first. It's a technical problem. Can we begin again and see whether it works this time?
Okay. Au nom de mon pays, le Maroc, je tiens à intervenir pour exprimer ma gratitude à l'ICCROM et ses partenaires. La direction du patrimoine culturel marocain en tire un grand bénéfice en termes de renforcement des capacités. Je remercie par la même occasion le gouvernement italien qui a mis récemment en œuvre la conversion d'une dette marocaine en projet de conservation de sites archéologiques inscrits sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Il s'agit d'un outil de financement, d'un moyen ou d'un modèle de partenariat nord-sud que nous suivrons de près et que nous appliquerons dans le futur si ces résultats paraîtront positifs. À la fin, j'appelle tous les États membres de l'ICCROM à soutenir le centre régional ATHAR Sharjah durant l'exercice biennal prochain. Comme vous l'avez constaté dans la communication du Dr Zaki, son contexte d'intervention est agité, plein de troubles. Les défis qu'ils affrontent sont énormes, mais avec le soutien de tout le monde, ils ne sont pas impossibles à relever. Et merci.
Merci beaucoup. Belgium.
Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Directeur général et honorable Assemblée, la Belgique applaudit les résultats impressionnants du rapport tels qu'ils ont été présentés aujourd'hui. Et elle veut témoigner avec enthousiasme de la bonne collaboration de l'IRPA, Institut royal du patrimoine artistique, avec l'équipe de l'ICCROM, aussi bien dans l'organisation du workshop et de la conférence SOIMA à Bruxelles que dans le workshop REORG au sein des réserves des musées royaux. Nous admirons le professionnalisme inspiré du staff de l'ICCROM, en particulier des dames Aparna Tandon, Catherine Automarki et de M. Gaël de Guichin. Nous les félicitons de tout cœur. Une nouvelle génération de professionnels a pu bénéficier de ces expériences et continue dans le cas de REORG à être suivie avec un programme spécifique à distance. La Belgique adhère aussi à la nouvelle vision de changement présentée ce matin. Nous encourageons le staff à continuer à développer ces stratégies durables. De son côté, la Belgique s'engage à mettre toutes ses forces disponibles, comme elle a fait pour SOIMA et REORG, pour aider l'ICCROM à accomplir ses missions au profit du patrimoine. Merci.
Kenya.
Thank you, Madam President. On behalf of Kenyan delegation, I would like to thank the Director General and his team for the excellent work that has been done over the years. As Kenya, we have benefited greatly from an institution called Center for Heritage Development in Africa, previously known as a Program for Museum Development in Africa. Through the support of ICCROM and other donors, including the program African 2000, we have been able to train very many African professionals in sub-Saharan Africa. As of now, unfortunately, there hasn't been support from ICCROM and many other agencies in the operations of CHEDA. CHEDA is the Center for Heritage Development in Africa. So we are seeing a gap, and we are looking forward to support to breathe life into CHEDA through ICCROM and other member countries. Thank you very much.
Haiti. Haiti.
Merci, Madame le Président. Donc, je voudrais d'abord commencer par réitérer les remerciements du ministère de la Culture à l'ICCROM pour sa contribution post-séisme de janvier 2010. Autant que peut se faire, l'ICCROM justement avait tenu un atelier de formation en Haïti après le 12 janvier 2010. Mais je voudrais également encourager, féliciter l'ICCROM dans la continuité de ces initiatives. À notre avis, l'ICCROM, il est évident, n'est pas un espace de contrainte, de coercition sur les États, mais cependant, l'ICCROM doit et peut influencer les politiques culturelles des différents États partis. De toute façon, il faut qu'il y ait une certaine valeur ajoutée de l'ICCROM aux politiques culturelles des États partis. Donc, et cette valeur ajoutée, c'est tant par l'orientation politique, d'une part, mais d'autre part, c'est par les activités pratiques, ces initiatives, ces projets. Puis ce sont ces projets-là qui vont créer une base d'expertise, une masse critique dans le cadre de la conservation et de la restauration du patrimoine mondial et du patrimoine de chaque pays. Cependant, il y a certaines remarques, en fait, par rapport aux différents projets. Et par exemple, dans notre cas, le ministère souhaite renforcer la coopération avec l'ICCROM, le ministère de la Culture, la coopération avec l'ICCROM, et parce qu'il y a un problème en termes tantôt de suivi, mais également par les canaux que par exemple, nous utilisons pour faire passer les informations. Il y a certains projets, par exemple, il y a l'ILAM comme portal culturel, on a besoin des canaux numériques, mais on a besoin également des canaux officiels. Dans le même programme que vous avez présenté à la tribune ici, Haïti aurait pu bien participer. Malheureusement, si vous voulez, on n'est pas au courant totalement, je vais bien dire totalement, on n'est pas au courant de ces programmes, où il n'y a pas eu d'invitation. Et je l'ai dit, vous m'excusez de vous le dire, parce que quand je suis monté, par exemple, au secrétariat de la ministre ou au secrétariat de la direction générale, et j'ouvre le portfolio, le classeur justement des institutions internationales pour l'ICCROM, donc je ne trouve pas autant d'informations concernant tous ces programmes, tous ces projets. Alors qu'en Haïti, pour chaque programme, on a des besoins institutionnels. Je prends l'exemple, la formation sur le bois. Il y a un programme d'école atelier de Jacques Mel avec la coopération espagnole, l'Agence espagnole de coopération internationale pour le développement. Donc on a un programme d'école atelier sur la conservation, sur le patrimoine pour le développement. Donc dans le cadre de ce programme, on serait bien intéressé justement à participer, à faire suivre justement les étudiants en formation justement de la conservation du bois. Je prends l'exemple de la méthodologie de recherche archéologique, mais c'est un programme qui naturellement doit encourager le bureau et intéresser le Bureau national d'ethnologie en Haïti. Et nous n'avons pas, si vous voulez, suffisamment d'expertise dans ce domaine. Donc je peux prendre systématiquement chaque programme ici, on a des correspondants, on a des interlocuteurs, on a des interfaces qu'on peut établir en Haïti pour chaque programme. Puisque le ministère de la Culture a un ensemble de 9 organismes autonomes sous sa tutelle. Donc, ceci dit, donc, il y a, à mon avis, et c'est certaines propositions que je tenais peut-être à présenter, sous la forme de propositions, pas forcément sous la forme de questions. Donc, il y a un problème, à mon avis, de concentration des projets ou des programmes. C'est pour cela que ce matin, mon collègue c'est Algérie, si je ne me trompe pas, avait parlé de cette question de stratégie régionale. Donc, est-ce qu'on ne peut pas déconcentrer, ou bien comment réfléchir à une certaine déconcentration des programmes, à une certaine régionalisation des programmes? Peut-être que cela va faciliter plus de participation, mais également, j'en suis conscient, que cela va demander une augmentation des coûts. Cela va demander également beaucoup plus de moyens financiers. Cela va demander beaucoup plus de formateurs. Donc, l'autre proposition, peut-être, c'est de réaliser des formations in situ. Par exemple, dans le cas d'Haïti, donc comment plus ou moins collaborer à un programme de formation in situ. Donc, c'est-à-dire les formateurs viennent en Haïti et l'État haïtien mutualise les coûts avec l'ICCROM. C'est-à-dire, on va prendre en charge, par exemple, les frais de voyage, etc., ou bien les frais de restauration et d'hébergement, etc., et l'ICCROM prend en charge les PDM, etc. Donc, les États peuvent mutualiser les coûts. Donc, quand on réalise des formations in situ, peut-être que ça va alléger également les coûts, parce que c'est plus coûteux justement pour quelqu'un de laisser Haïti pour aller en Norvège, par exemple, ou bien en Japon, que de réaliser les formations en Haïti même. Donc, autrement dit, il y a deux axes. À mon avis, il y a deux axes que j'aurais proposé que l'Assemblée ou bien que le secrétariat réfléchisse. C'est surtout cette question de régionalisation des programmes ou encore réaliser des programmes de formation in situ avec tous les coûts récurrents que cela va impliquer. Donc, je vous en remercie.
Thank you. Canada.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to begin by thanking the Director General and his staff for the very interesting presentations on the work this afternoon, and to add my congratulations to ICCROM for the very many accomplishments that it's had over the last biennium. I'd also like to confirm that many of the directions that and areas where ICCROM is placing its emphasis are in fact areas that are of great interest to Canadian cultural institutions, including the questions around digital preservation and impact assessment. The Canadian Conservation Institute is particularly delighted to be a partner with ICCROM on reorg. And I'd like to take a moment now and think about some of the qualities of that program that have made it a very desirable and successful program in our context. One is that we've been able to give the course as a distance learning opportunity. So we've reduced the amount of time that people spend together, but elongated the period of learning. So the flexibility to be able to accommodate it to our own geographical and economic circumstances has been really helpful, and we are now planning to roll out reorg across Canada over the next 5 years on a region-by-region basis. It's useful to us that there are tools that are and future tools that will become available online so that the benefits of the program can be accessed not only by the people who are signed up to take the training course. And also the train the trainers model allows us to empower museum workers and to also engage them in ensuring the success of the program. Finally, in our case, we were fortunate that we were able to establish a partnership with the major museum funding program in Canada, which is run through the Department of Canadian Heritage, and that allowed museums to access funds to put into practice what they were learning in theory in the classroom. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say that I very much look forward to our continued collaboration on this work.
Sudan.
Thank you, Madam the President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like first of all to acknowledge the work done by the ICCROM staff for the preservation of the cultural heritage all over the world. We recognize that work. However, we notice there is a lack of programs for the conservation of cultural heritage in Africa. However, African countries also were affected by other effects such as conflicts, desertification, and natural disasters. And also there are other types of heritage which is susceptible and vulnerable to destruction, which is not clearly noted. That is the intangible cultural heritage, which is also severely affected nowadays due to conflicts in Africa. My second remark is that I would like also to express our gratitude actually for ICCROM for the strong partnership with ATHAR Center in Sharjah. Really, this center played an important role. We would like to thank His Royal Highness Al-Qasimi, and also we thank Dr. Aslan for the excellent programs which were launched for raising the capacities of our personnel in the Arabic world to better preserving our cultural heritage. However, this center also have an important role to play in the recovery and the reconstruction of the damage, of the intentional damaged heritage in Syria, in Iraq, and in Yemen. So we should like to assure the continuity. We'd like to request the General Assembly that the continuity of this center is will be having an important focal role in reconstructing the cultural heritage. And also there is another role which will be going to be played by this center, is that raising the awareness of our local communities in the Arab world towards valorizing their cultural heritage and better protecting this cultural heritage. Because also in Sudan, however, we consider the cultural heritage as a tool of reconciliation and reinforcing the national unities of our populations. This is through establishing a museum in each state, especially in the conflict areas. So our request in the future, the continuity and the support. So all state parties, if they support this ATHAR center to do better its work, it will be highly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Bahrain.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'd like to start with warm congratulations to the Director General and his entire team for the impressive presentations we've heard over the past hours. And it's always the variety of activities that this small organization implements all over the world that is an impressive feature of this General Assembly. So I'd like to thank you for all the presentations. I would not be able to comment on all of them, but I'd like to highlight a few and perhaps add one aspect that wasn't presented in particular, but that has always impressed us over the past 2 years, which is that ICCROM continuously improves its communication, in particular through its web presence and social media, in being able to more intensely and engaging pass its message, but also its activities to a very, very wide audience. And this is something I would like to acknowledge in particular. We are also very glad that the activities of the reorg program could continue despite the very limited financial resources it was given over the past biennium, and we had gladly the opportunity to receive an evaluation visit to our National Museum storage in the context of this program, and we're very much looking forward to future cooperation in this context. I was equally impressed by the Heritage Impact Assessment courses, and given that inappropriate development near or in heritage sites is indeed a global phenomenon, we hope that these courses will move to be available on a global scale to the variety of professionals that would have interest in ICCROM courses of this kind. And then, of course, lastly, I would like to comment on the ATHAR Center, which is the heart of ICCROM in our region, and therefore, in its presentation, always very dear to our interest and attention. And it is impressive how, through the funding and the personal engagement of His Highness Sheikh Sultan Al-Qasimi, this small center has managed to almost reflect, in a nutshell, the variety of ICCROM activities within a regional context. And that's a very unique feature that ICCROM offers to the Arab states in particular. And in this context, we've also followed with much interest the initiative and the memorandum of understanding that has just been signed last month between the ICCROM-ATHAR Center and the University of Sharjah to offer a joint master program in the context of cultural heritage conservation and management. And it actually sounds a little like this could make a dream become true, that perhaps generations of ICCROM course participants have long cherished, which is that their participation in ICCROM courses could be recognized in terms of credits that would also be acceptable at a university level, and that could be recognized in academic credit systems and curricula. And hence, this perhaps leads me into a question towards the end of a long list of comments, which is if this move to become a partner in a joint master program actually means that ICCROM is also moving to evaluate the variety of its courses as being valued in an academic context, so they could actually be recognized in university systems all over the world, or is that a single case that is just being implemented? Thank you very much.
Germany.
Chair, first of all, I'd like to thank the Director General and his staff for this comprehensive overview of the activities and projects. I have two questions. The first one is, are further regional offices like the ATHAR offices under consideration? That is my first one. And the second one is a question in regard to the overview of the HIE courses which are foreseen for the next years, I think. I'd like to know what is in the focus of these courses. is in the focus of the course to develop and to show tools how to conduct HIA, or is more in focus the legal aspects, as we heard that it is very important to link the HIA approaches with legally implemented processes like the EIH, and therefore what is this more legally or more practically? So that is my question.
Thailand.
I would like to thank the ICCROMs as a whole. In 2011, I was here at the General Assembly, and at that time, my country is in flood disaster, and I have a good chance to report and request ICCROMs and other countries for supporting of the expert to Thailand. And my request come through so many experts from United States of America, Japan, Germany, especially from Italy, send expert for the modern paintings, conservations. And anyway, at that time, I think that I would like to have the expert for the brick conservations. I request in that meetings in 2011 and support by the Chinese representative, and then the Chinese representative will be the committees. And but I'm waiting for the project or program for brick conservations. I think the brick monument is very serious things if we face the problem of the flood disasters in Southeast Asian countries and in other Asian countries that have the brick monument. I know that Italy is a very skilled expert in stone conservations. We have a chance to send many conservators to learn here. But if they have any program in the future for brick conservation, in very useful for Southeast Asian country. I know that the Coral Asians or Coral Asia is very good for collection of conservations. But I would like to request have the papers and textile conservation should be added in these programs. Thank you for the papers of the Gaminis. Your report is very good. That do bring us to close to the peoples. As Youth People Center is very useful for our conservation work in the futures, but we have to look for a younger generation. That is one that I would like to comment. And for the SOIMA conservation, it's a very great project. And I think that we can share more information in the future. Thank you very much.
Syrian Arab Republic.
First, I would like to say that it gives me pleasure to represent the Directorate General of Antiquities and Museums in Syria in the meeting of the 29th General Assembly of ICCROM. Thank you very much for the invitation. More than 4 years have already passed since the beginning of the war in my country, and still Syria still suffering from not only great loss of life, but our cultural heritage is being destroyed during the recent war. Actual damage can be broken into different categories and vary in degrees of degradation. These range from the simple graffiti on Roman temples to the destruction of Palmyra and the old city of Aleppo. The media reports of destruction show that the situation is hopeless. But inside Syria, still people fighting to save this heritage and strive to update the post of the damage, working to document and launching a training program in cooperation with our international organizations. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of them, to their important help and support, and also for the exceptional support received from ICCROM-ATHAR. Several activities were held according to our responded to the immediate and urgent needs for a group of over than 180 cultural heritage professionals from different cities in Syria and different authorities. The technical and scientific trainings provided during the 2 e-learning courses in Damascus and Idlib and 2 long field training in Beirut addressed the questions of how to protect cultural heritage during a conflict situation and how to provide first aid and emergency responses to damaged sites and collections. Finally, we still have a long way to go, and only through your support we will be able to reach our fundamental goal to save our cultural heritage which belongs to the humanity. Thank you very much.
I am going to bring this to a close unless there's an error. Netherlands, your card is still raised. Is it an error, or did you wish to speak again?
Speak again. And on this occasion, I would like to thank you very much for the inspiring presentations of the work of ICCROM in the last biennium. The Netherlands are impressed by the results and the diversity of the activities of ICCROM. The presentations not only conveyed with how much professionalism the projects were performed, but also with how much pleasure and conviction. What we also appreciate is to see how much can be done with the active involvement of partners. And we support the call of ICCROM of more in-kind contribution for the future years. The presentations made us also once more aware of the very different existing needs resulting from different national and regional realities and ensuing problems, and we just heard one of the examples. However, we would like also to remind us all here of the very inspiring keynote speech yesterday of Mr. Jerry Velasquez, in which he asked us if we want to systematically measure, acquire data and formulate indicators that enable us to assess the loss and, in doing so, the value of cultural heritage. The keynote of Mr. Velasquez centered on climate change and natural disasters, but to us it represents a broader issue. How can we build a sound basis of data and interpretation of these data in a way that it gives our collective work in the field of cultural heritage a sound legitimation? Thank you very much.
Delegates, I truly need to bring this to a close. I do know Burkina Faso would like to speak, but honestly, I will only take this intervention, and then we must close this session.
Et merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais m'associer à tous ceux qui ont adressé tout à l'heure leurs félicitations à Monsieur le DG et à son équipe. Et je dirais aussi au Conseil, bien sûr, qui a su orienter et certainement prendre les bonnes décisions pour que l'équipe puisse travailler dans des conditions acceptables. Alors j'ai un souci, c'est celui de la région Afrique, dont on a pu se rendre compte que de façon globale, elle a été faiblement bénéficiaire des actions. Et mon souci, justement, va dans le sens de ce que mon collègue d'Algérie a dit tout à l'heure et un autre intervenant, c'est le souci de l'équilibre. Peut-on mieux faire pour la région Afrique sur les programmes à venir, notamment 2016-2017? C'est vrai qu'au stade actuel, on peut s'interroger sur le pourquoi de cette faiblesse de la participation de la région Afrique. On n'en connaît pas tout à fait les raisons, mais je pense que, comme quelqu'un l'a dit, il est possible d'améliorer la communication vers cette région afin que les pouvoirs publics, les États partis, puissent être bien informés de ce qui se fait comme action, ce qu'il y a comme programme, ce qu'il y a comme opportunité, afin qu'ils puissent saisir leur chance pour, évidemment, améliorer la gestion de leur politique publique. Je prends un seul exemple, le cas du programme SOIMA. Beaucoup de gens savent qu'il y a eu inondation à Ouagadougou en 2009. Ouagadougou, qui est entre griffes la capitale du cinéma et où il y a la cinémathèque africaine, et la plupart des œuvres cinématographiques ont été endommagées à Ouagadougou. Et jusqu'à présent, on n'a pas encore totalement réussi à restaurer ou à sauver, on va dire, la quasi-totalité des œuvres. Donc, on aurait eu toutes les informations, par exemple, relatives à ce programme, qu'on aurait très rapidement réagi pour interpeller l'ICCROM et solliciter son accompagnement pour la restauration ou pour nous aider à trouver des copies d'œuvres ailleurs, je n'en sais rien. Et même pour la conservation qui doit être faite dans des conditions un peu plus idoines pour éviter que des situations pareilles ne se renouvellent à l'avenir. Donc, vraiment merci. Et le souhait, c'est un seul. Faisons en sorte que les interventions soient un tout petit peu plus équilibrées, notamment un peu plus en faveur du continent africain si c'est possible. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. I now turn it to the Director General to provide his comments or answer some of your questions.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I could not answer all the questions, but at least to some of them, I probably come back tomorrow or commenting the program budget for 2016-17. There are some which are very, they point at particular points, like, by instance, we should take in consideration the brick architecture. Of course, this is true. And we had some mission, by instance, in the Southeast Asia to look at this kind of architecture and the relationship between paintings and this kind of architecture. We have some report about this, and this is one of the possible outcomes, because we had a built heritage course, and we alternated with the stone course. Of course, the stone course is more related to some regions of the world, Italy, Europe, etc. There are other, like wood, like bricks, like many other issues, earth and architecture, which are typical of other regions of the world, even more very extensive. And so we have probably to reflect a little bit if to deal with this specific issue in only regional courses or also in international courses, alternating built heritage as a problem, now dealing not only with architecture but with urban planning, and on the other side with the materials and techniques. This is something that we have to look in a strategic way. The second issue is about communication, of course. Britta is perfectly right. I appreciate very much the effort that she has looked at, our effort in communication. And I think that this will be still more improved in the future, because communication and using communication as part of the strategy for disseminating knowledge is really fundamental. We will increase our effort in this. About the issue of regional centers, about the issues of working regionally, this is really one of the problem, one of the issues that we have now, in the sense that, and in this sense, the ICCROM Center is on one side a realization, and the other side is an experiment, in the sense that up to now we have been able to manage the balance between international vision, international problems, international perspective, and to be adapted, focusing on regional needs. This is the challenge. And it's a challenge that can be repeated in other parts of the world. Of course, more regional centers you are thinking of, more needs there are. More is the challenge of losing the international perspective in favor of the local perspective. But it will be one of the tasks of the ICCROM Center, not only to look at the to prove that the flexibility of a local center, of a regional center, of a regional office is the best solution for the regional problems, but also to deal with the problem of not losing the international perspective. And when it has been told that regions communication is important, so how to mix the problems, how to deal with the problems of Arab region with the problems of Africa or with the problem of Latin America, how to connect the world is one of the challenges that we have in front of us. So I will think that before entering in other new center, we have a period of expectation. We have to be embedded in other regional programs, but before to take the lead of other regional centers, we have to study, to reflect, to comment how the regional center office of ATHAR will be developed in the coming years. So it's an ongoing process. Flexibility versus international perspective. This is the real questions. But to respond to the local point of Haiti, why Caribbean are... Haiti is a particular case in the sense that it is a francophone country in a Spanish and Lusophone continent. Therefore, their participation to the LATAM programs is a little bit more restricted. We have discussed these issues in the last meeting of the LATAM ambassadors that we have quite regularly here in Rome. The issue of the participation and of the success of the LATAM program is one of the issues that we care more. And we have seen, in particular, this was the case of the Haiti ambassador saying we are a little bit far or not really involved. Of course, in this case, it's a technical question, just we can cover it in the future if we have the means, through translation, to integration, to translation of the handbooks, and so on. On the other hand, Latin America will be one of the programs that will be discussed probably tomorrow or later, because it is one of the issues that we have. We have in the past Assembly, in the past Council, searched innovative ways of thinking of programs for Latin America. Recently we have seen an improvement, at least in many programs, but thanks to many countries. In particular, Mexico has developed this through communication more than with other means. But it's at least a main important ways of doing with this. Brazil has offered the possibility of working across the continents, thinking of a Lusophone program involving Africa. And this brings to the main point that in my vision is, I agree with all the people that have said that Africa is the main problem that we have to face, is this really. And I share perfectly the comment of the Kenya representative that the problems that the SEDA is facing now, as faced in the last year, is just the sign of a problem. On one side, we have the good result of the École du Patrimoine Africain, which has been recognized, and this is very important, as a tool of Pan-African interest. The African Union has recognized the EPA, and behind EPA also the effort of ICCROM with the fund for EPA as a good tool for training heritage, according to not one country like Benin, but according to the African Union. On the other side, there are the problems of the Cultural Heritage Development Center of Kenya, of Mombasa. This shows that the models, the different adopted models, needs to be rethought in a way. There must be, the PREMA programs was a success because there was a large involvement of some European countries, of the European Union, etc. establishing a fund, a continuous program. When I have reported about my effort with the European Commission, my main task is to involve, again, European Union in this, but also other countries, United States, all the people where there is the emigration from Africa, this century, the past centuries, etc. Because the African sustainability is the base of most of the world's sustainability in the future. Most of the problem of the climate change will affect Africa. Most of the problem of instability of development will affect Africa. And if Africa is not developed, there is no issue, and there is no solution for the others. There can be rich countries in front of a poor Africa. There can be, it's absolutely impossible. It's a problem of communicating ways. And communicating brings peace or bring conflict, bring problems. We have to think of, logically, as Africa, in a spirit of ethics, but also in a spirit, in a practical part. When we see our cities and we see all the African refugees coming through Libya, how they are affected, how they move through a peaceful countries, peaceful and prosperous countries, and how these countries are open, generous, but they too will have problems. So without a development, local development in Africa, and heritage is the base of the development, is one of the components of the development. Whatever we have told about sustainability, poverty, etc., living heritage, etc., means that heritage is important for the development, sustainable development. So it's a problem that sooner or later will touch all the countries, all the continents. And it's better to develop an integrated policy towards Africa. But this is not exempt the African countries, the African Union, from the responsibility of taking a lead. In the past, decades ago, it was a question of philanthropy by other countries, by the other organizations. Now it's a problem of political responsibility. There must be a bilateral political responsibility in in addressing these problems. Some among you, you know very well that every time I ask organizations to make proposal for Africa, ICCROM can play a little role in this because we are a little organization. We cannot resolve the problem of the world. But certainly, our experience in the past, through PREMA, through SEDA, to EPA, has provided good model. Some of them are working. Some of them require reflection. But both of them, they require a new action. Thank you.
Thank you, Director General. I would ask the General Assembly now to adopt, by a show of hand, the report on the implementation of the program for 2014-15. All those in favor? Abstentions? Those opposed? Thank you. We are running late, as you can see. We are going to move item number 18 to immediately after a short pause. I would ask that you return at 10 to 5. 10 to 5, and we will have the Director General present the provisional program and budget for 2016. Thank you. Once again, delegates, if I could ask you to take your seats, please. Thank you. We are now proceeding to agenda item number 18, which is the provisional program and budget for 2016-17 and the approval by the General Assembly. I would ask that the Director General present the provisional program and budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In preparing the program and budget for 2016-17, we followed the structure already discussed and tested in previous biennia together with the Council. But before developing the list of the proposed activities, I think we have to highlight the main peculiarities of the period that we expect are in front of us and our possible reactive actions. In our case, in this period, the continued repetition of dramatic events, like in the last biennium, makes it more and more clear where the major problems for heritage will come from, also in the next biennium. The widening of the crisis in southern and eastern Mediterranean with the emergence of a systematic terrorism that has chosen both cultural heritage and tourism as the primary objectives in the region, the consequent phenomena of the refugees towards Europe, of the terrorism attacks to civil life, not only in Europe but worldwide, are all evidences that conflicts are the main threat to the human civil life and to heritage within it. Since we cannot cultivate a reasonable hope that the most of these problems could be resolved in a short time period, ICCROM, in its responsibility for developing good practices for training conservation of cultural heritage in all its forms, has the duty to take into account these scenarios and their implication as a priority. Political crisis situations are in the most cases connected with other problems: poverty, destruction of the environment and of natural resources. Mr. Velasquez explained how this scenario will worsen in the coming years because of the climate change, and call for an integrated approach in the same way that this requested by the preparedness to respond to natural disasters. It will thus become more and more important to continue to develop research and training in the disaster risk management and emergency response in times of conflict and natural disaster. For many decades, the international community has been active in this area, especially in the field of humanitarian relief, and there are success stories that honor the many organizations involved, both intergovernmental and non-governmental. As you have seen from the reports from the last biennium, ICCROM, that carried out a number of activities in this area in the past, became recently much more active, based on the strategic directions formulated already in 2008 by the Council. Following the implementation of early interventions in Haiti and in Egypt, it has become clear that there is a strong need for this kind of activity, and that the approach and methodologies adopted by ICCROM have been very much appreciated. For these reasons, the program and budget for the next biennium was organized giving a relative priority to the area of disaster and risk management. In second line, we have considered the state of health of our organization. ICCROM has again increased the number of member states, a clear sign of the good moral health of the organization, its excellent reputation for strict neutrality, for the effectiveness of its programs, and for the good work of the staff. Our large international coverage is an important tool to work effectively, using a shared awareness of the importance of conservation of cultural heritage as a tool for dialogue beyond the boundaries of single states, and even beyond the legitimate pride of every member state for its national heritage. It is essential that conservation professionals are aware of their role at a global level to consider these aspects of culture for dialogue, the only alternative to the devastating wave of conflict and the fresh outbreak of a rude nationalism. ICCROM, from its headquarters in Rome, from its new regional office in Sharjah, and from all the places where ICCROM activities are organized, as a privileged place where culture and the dialogue of culture can be formed. But there is another non-geographical place which is substantial for our organization. It's the network of the thousands of young and middle career professionals who pass through ICCROM in various capacities. It is therefore essential to strengthen the capacity of ICCROM to act as a host to professionals from diverse backgrounds, both with the strong programs of internship and fellowship supported with adequate funds to allow for those from developing countries to participate, and by organizing a structure of alumni able to improve this network and made of it a more concrete resource not only for the spirit, but also for the capacity of this organization. This is linked with the third consideration that I already mentioned presenting the report of the current biennium. An effective implementation of our program of activities would raise the increasing critical issue of human resource of ICCROM. Of course, the organization is already relying extensively on the network of a partnership, from UNESCO to ICOMOS to ICN and to all the national institutions. Nevertheless, the need for a larger staff dedicated full-time to the implementation of the program is vital to the organization and to the quality of our work. A possible solution is for ICCROM to receive secondment from the heritage institutions of our member states, as Madame Janowski has pointed out. I have already answering to the questions before pointed that among the regional programs, which seems to me a little bit weak, and I share the opinion of some of you, the program related to sub-Saharan Africa. You will see that there is a little provision in the regional activities, but it's certainly non-satisfactory. The last but not the least preliminary consideration is the financial sustainability of the program. We drafted this program under the hypothesis that the taxes issue would have been resolved before this assembly. We have seen that this is not yet the case, and we have to wait the next Council in 2016 to have a global solution, including the depth of the current premises maintenance costs. Mrs. Janowski explained to us that even though the problem of the Italian debt is relevant, we can sustain this delay of 1 year of program and budget using other tools, such as operating on the ASCI fund, one of your hypotheses. That's fine. But the next Bureau and the next Council should be very careful to verify that the aforesaid term is respected. And if the Italian Parliament puts them, then the eventual conditions of our new agreement are fully acceptable. Now, coming to the programme activities for 2016-17, let us consider that to frame them, we have used two schemes. The one of the strategic directions as approved by the Council in 2010. They have been under review by the ICCROM Council during the biennium 2014-15, and as you know from the report of Sharon Park in our Council, they will be reconsidered in the coming exercise. So we will have a new reconsideration of strategic directions. But by the moment they are still those we have agreed in the past years, which are strategic direction number one is training, ensuring the quality and relevance of ICCROM training. The second strategic direction is research, so it means reintegrating, re-emphasizing the important role of material science, scientific methodologies and conservation science in ICCROM's programs and activities, and ensuring that ICCROM continues to take an interdisciplinary approach and integrate the result of research in conservation-related fields. The third one is communication, information, and advice. So to ensure that ICCROM remains a reliable and up-to-date source of information and advice for member states. The second scheme is the medium term, so the 6-year vision that ICCROM's General Assembly in 2011 approved to specifically meet emerging conservation needs and priorities in our member states. The following 5 main program areas were developed and have been under implementation since 2012. The first of these areas is developing and promoting disaster and risk management, as I have told is still the most important. the most relevant at least for our program. The development of this program and budget prioritized the activities within the disaster and risk management program area. In particular, a stronger focus has been given to the courses and other activities dealing with the first aid to cultural heritage in time of emergency and the reorg program. The second area is integrating material science and technology with conservation. In this program area, emphasis has been given both to the course on conservation of sound and image collection, as well to the follow-up of the ICCROM Forum on Science and Conservation. The third is improving conservation and management practice through the World Heritage Convention. You heard the report of Joe King, and we will continue on this issue. We can discuss, responding to the question of the German delegate, how we will liaise the problem of the legal framework of the impact assessment with the practicalities of these issues. This is a very important problem. We will have the fourth area, which is promoting people-centered approach to conservation, living heritage. The program area on promoting this approach to conservation was not able to raise funds for activities during the past 2 biennia. For these reasons, resources are foreseen to carry out at least 1 course and 1 workshop in this area. Building regional collaboration. In the area for regional collaboration, a small amount of seed funding has been provided to the LATAM program to ensure a better communication with professionals and institutions in the region. We put a little seed money to stimulate this area. Part C of the program covers the knowledge and communication services. This section is divided in 3 parts, highlighting the proposed activities of ICCROM's library, archives, and communication services. And in this part, there is a lot of thinking about communication, about improvement of the social media, but also about the distribution of information and a new tools, which is the Archaeological Conservation New Journal for stimulating professionals to publish their activities. Part D of the program deals with all the necessary financial information, and Mrs. Janowski is ready to answer to the questions about this issue. This includes information on the proposed regular budget and external funds, the budget envelope, and the scale of assessment. I will not go into the detail of every single issue, as you have the figure in your program in your envelope. I will just give the overall figures, the target indicators for the biennium. We expect that during the 2016-17 biennium to obtain the following results. We aim to implement between 10 and 15 courses, which will develop 62 weeks of courses for the benefit of a number between 235 to 195 professionals, and to receive fellows and researchers in a number of between 4 to 8, and to host in ICCROM between 4 to 8 interns. We also hope, we also expect, with reasonable confidence, that during the biennium, ICCROM will produce didactic materials. Paul Aronson is working on this, together with the communication service, for the use of institutions in member states. And we also expect that our network of alumni and of collaborators will strengthen our capacity to be present in our different tools of communication. I think that I finished.
Thank you, Director General. You now have the opportunity to ask any questions or make interventions in regard to this agenda item, so I open the floor for discussion. If there are no questions or comments, we are going to proceed to voting for the program and budget for the upcoming biennial. So this is your opportunity to speak to this issue. Could I ask that the United States. Oh. All right, United States.
There we go. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to you, Mr. Director General, for the presentation of the planned program of work and for the budget as well. We absolutely appreciate the work that went into this. It's very well presented, it's very organized, and it's very loyal to the strategic objectives that have been set. The only question I'd like to pose, it could be a question for you, also a question to sort of linger in the room for the existing council members and for those who will be part of the planning for the next set of, the next phase of strategic planning is how do we, both ICCROM and the Assembly, how do we prioritize work if perhaps resources don't come through, or if it does not become possible to do the full planned menu of options that we have. We read in the budget, we heard you say that the budget is based on an assumption that additional funds will be coming in. We've had the discussion here, and there's optimism on that front, but as you've told us now, it may be that another year has to pass, perhaps two, and those funds may not be at our disposal immediately. We also recognize, and this is a good thing at times, the broad level of experience that the organization has and the broadening of the mandate of the organization as well. But when we juxtapose that with a rather stagnant budgetary environment and decreasing staff over the years, those who have read have seen that the manpower inside the organization to do the work has been going down as a product of necessity over the past few years. The question is, are you able to do everything that is planned? And if not, what then is the process to determine what you aren't able to do? Thank you.
Luckily, our organization has a governance which gives not only to the Director General the capacity to decide. We have periodical review of the situation through both the Council and the expression of the Council, which is the Bureau. So in some months, in April maybe, we will have a meeting of the Bureau, and we will have a first assessment of the development of the situation. It happened also in the past. Many of the letters that Madame Lavandier has written were written just after the Bureau, because we were watched what was coming, both in situation of the premises, of the taxes, and so on. Many of the decisions were taken not only coming back to the next General Assembly, but at intermediate rates. And I used also in the past to take the most important of the decisions through a consultation with the Bureau and the Council, even without the fixed terms of the Council meeting. So we will see what are the proposals of the Italian side. We will see how the situation will be running on, and we will take the appropriate measures. We will consult with Madame Janowski, who will suggest what to do. The last of the issue I would consider, but if it's the case we will consider, is to reduce the program. If there is just a question of time, and we have to wait 2 years, but the solution is concrete and is feasible, then we can also use the operational reserve of the HASHI fund, etc. Because what is important is not to lose efficacy, activity, concreteness. We can recover if the solution is in view. Of course, if the solution has no concreteness, is lost in the clouds, then we have to take other visions, other directions. The worst of this can be to cut programs, but then also deciding in such a situation if we are still safe in a country that could not allow us to continue. But I want not to think that this, you see, a country that is allowing 10 million euro for providing us an headquarters would be really inconsistent if not deciding to resolve a problem of hundreds of thousands of euros. So I think that a solution will be found.
Other questions or comments? Italy?
Yeah. Just, to clarify what has already been mentioned over the last 2 days. It's not a problem of 100,000 euros. It's just, how to say, I just want to point out the difference between, on the one hand, the issue of the Italian contribution, and on the other hand, the issue of the fiscal exemption for the Italian officers of the organization. Indeed, the question of fiscal exemption for national citizens is a national sovereign matter. And so in this regard, it is possible to underline either the case of the UN in New York, where American citizens are reimbursed by the UN tax reimbursement system, or the International Criminal Court in The Hague, where Dutch officers pay all national taxes without reimbursement. So we are just want to point out that it is our political willingness, but is not an international obligation. Thanks.
But then the organization can then take other sustainability measures, like as, just for the clarity of, not to have other Italians in the organization. How to say? It's a question of sustainability. If the United States pay back, reimburse the taxes for the nationals of the United States, and if take Italians, costs to the organization is a penalty, is affecting sustainability. Not only I will be the last Italian in the organizations, but I don't know how we will proceed in this way. In this moment, Italy is taking from the organization more money than puts in. It's true. The new premises are to come.
Other comments, questions? If not, I'd like the slide to be put up on the screen. This is the document that we are discussing right now, and it's GA 29/10, Budget Approval Resolution. In your document, the English is on page 45. It's item D3.3, and in the French copy, it's page 43. D3.3. This is the budget resolution. It is on the screen, and we are going to vote using your electronic, what should I call them? Gadgets. I can't think of another word right now. Thank you. So if you have your item here, remember again, you are voting on the budget approval resolution. Yes is green, number 1. 2 is yellow, you're abstaining. 3 is red, you're not approving. Is everyone clear? Are there any questions? Because I'm about to ask that you vote. Please vote now. Has everyone had the opportunity? Thank you. Please close the voting. There are the results. It's approved. Before we end for the evening, there are a couple of announcements. One is in regard to evaluation. If I could ask the to switch the screen, please. Thank you. It's very important, both to ICCROM, to understand your views, and therefore you have the opportunity to evaluate, which is very important. You have the opportunity to do so this time online, if you wish. And so what you see on the screen currently is that this is available in both French and English. There are links for you to do so. Should you choose to want to do a handwritten hard copy of your evaluation, you certainly can do so, and it is available at the desk, from what I understand. So you may do an evaluation before you leave hard copy. However, if you'd like to reflect and do this from later by online, you're welcome to do so. I'd also like to remind delegates about tomorrow. It's an important day, and I would ask for your punctuality. The doors will close at 9:15. And since you've all got to know me so well over 2 days, you know I'm going to do that. So I would ask, kindly, that you please arrive on time at 9. At 9:15, I will ask that the doors close, and only the delegates and alternates are to remain. Everyone else, observers, staff, etc., will be asked to leave the room. You will also be asked to disconnect any streaming and external audio, and we will then explain the voting procedure. But I thought, just to remind you, so that you have an opportunity over dinner this evening to think it over, there are 12 seats to be filled. And you need to vote for 12 in order to have your ballot be counted. So I want to explain, because we have this issue every General Assembly. Some choose to only vote for 10 people. That's an invalid ballot, and it will not be counted. So if you do not mark 12 on your ballot, you know that your ballot will not be counted. I just wanted you to know that tonight so that you have a real good opportunity to read all the curriculum vitae, to talk to the people tonight over dinner or in the hallway, and make a decision so that tomorrow we can get through this process as quickly as possible. So I wish all of you a wonderful evening. Enjoy your evening in Rome, and I'll see you sharp 9 a.m.